Guys, it's Heidi from Sedgefield. Welcome back to my channel. And today I am with Pheasant. Pheasant porpenreid. Did I say that right?
You did, thank you.
Cool. And we want to talk a little bit about, ask her to speak a little bit about a book she's written. Here's your book.
Here's my book.
Between her and her mom. I started reading it this morning and it was fantastic. And I'm just not going to say too much. I'm going to just ask Phez if she will tell us a little bit about how this book all came about. Welcome.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Heidi. Hello, everybody. Yes, my name, like you heard, is Pheasant, like the bird. The birds they shoot in England. I've had a lot of teasing growing up. Some people who realize quite what a pheasant is call me tarantaal or geefowl. But pheasant it is, Phez for short. I wrote this book a couple of years after my accident. When I was 19 years old, I was involved in a horse riding accident. I was doing the third year of my diploma. It was equine science. I was studying horses. And the third year was a practical year. So I was on two different stud farms. And I was on the one that morning where I was trying to help train up or sort out a horse who was quite feisty for the owner, and they were worried the owner would move or sell the horse because she was a bit scared of him. So I was trying to fix him. And yeah, that day nobody really saw what happened. But we think because they found me lying with the dogs barking at the horse, that the horse freaked because the dogs were barking at it, and he chucked me off. And when I came down, when I was falling, he kicked out and got me in the back of the head here. So they knew something was wrong because the dogs were barking, and the owner of the property came and found me there. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I was airlifted to hospital, and I was in a coma for just under a month. I had 4 hemorrhages, 4 bleeds in my brain, and 4 fractures in my skull, and I had a whole lot of other complications. So it took a long time, not quite a long time. It took a long time to get over. Went in hospital. My mother initially thought, Phez will be fine. She'll get through this. She's strong. But they slowly realized, and with the neurologist, the neurosurgeon's guidance, that I would never quite be the same again. They said I wouldn't be really capable of leading a normal life again. So that was it still is my challenge, leading a normal life and being able to lead a capable, independent life. I was in a government hospital at the time. We didn't have medical aid. Well, I'd had a hospital, an accident plan for my year of working on the stud farm, my practical year for my studies, and that is why I did have 20,000 rand for my medicine, for any injury I might succumb to. 20,000 rand isn't a hell of a lot for medicine, even in this country. So I went straight to the Johannesburg General, which is, in its day, it was a very, very good hospital. People used to come from around the world to do their studies there to become doctors. However, since our changeover in government and the decline in our health system, it was pretty rotten by the time I got there. And although my mother was worried, my father was worried, they both spoke to Archie. Archie DeFilo was my neurosurgeon, and they said, shall we take her elsewhere? Must we get her to a private hospital? And he said to them, no, you mustn't do that. This ICU is excellent. It's the best in the world. However, when she comes out of the coma, if she comes out of the coma, you need to take her to a private hospital or home, because she won't get care. She'll probably die in the high care. So when I came around, luckily, after, 28 days, I had many complications, and a number of times my parents were called in the night to come because they thought I wouldn't last. I went straight home. From ICU, I went straight home. So the story in my book is about what I remember and my experience in the years after my accident, and how I have come to try and recover and lead a normal life. It is written in conjunction with my mother at the beginning. She writes of what happened, how she saw me in hospital, and what she experienced in the years talking about me and how I was developing. I write it remembering what has happened to me. I remember initially being out of my body after my accident, and seeing what was happening and understanding that I was being given the choice whether to live or die. I was very unhappy at the time of my accident for different reasons, and I didn't really want to be around. I didn't really want to live. And I believe God was giving me a chance to choose to go or to stay. And I was given the opportunity while in a coma to decide what I wanted to do. And I was very happy when I was out of my body to see that I had a whole lot of friends. I didn't believe I had many friends. I was a very, very lonely person. And when I saw all my family and all my friends, all these people I used to work with around my bed, I thought, oh wow, I do.
Anyway.
Where was I?
You're talking about your experience when out of your body experience.
Okay, so yes, I saw these people and I was very flattered and I felt loved. And so I thought, well, maybe I will come back. But I had this feeling that I had something important to do. I hadn't completed my journey in life. I had something to do. And I understood that if I didn't finish my life and do it in this life, I would come back again and start again from the beginning and have to do it all again. And, I loved my parents dearly. My parents were very, very, very close to me, and the idea of leaving and hurting them was too much. So I felt like I had a chance, I had a reason to come back. So my book is about coming back to life and everything which happened. There was a long period after I made my decision where it was all a blank. I think I had a bit of a time off. I can't remember anything there. And then slowly I came back to consciousness, and the book is about, the initial part is my experience of starting to see things again in terrible fear, because there was quite a lot of damage in my brain and I had no memory. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know who my parents were or my friends. All these people were there being nice to me. I didn't know who they were. I didn't even know who I was. I didn't understand. And, 2 days after I woke up, I went home. And I didn't know these people, who they were. And although I didn't understand who I was, I had this terrible fear I was being kidnapped. And what was going to happen to me? What must I do? And luckily, I had angels with me. I had angels looking after them. And I kept hearing this voice saying, just smile and they won't hurt you. So that's apparently what I did. I did a lot of smiling and being nice to everybody and talking. But then the voice would go away. Now, I don't remember this. The times where I would regress and the fear would overcome me and I would scream. And I screamed and screamed and screamed, apparently, when I got home, because I didn't know where I was. It was all strange. Everything was strange. I didn't know anything. So my poor parents, who were so happy to have me home, just wanted to take me back that night. But Archie on the phone said to them, just stick it out, be strong. It will it will be all right. You see, now luckily my memory was so very, very bad. I mean, I couldn't remember. I'd say to my mother, "Who are you?" "I'm your mother." "Who am I?" "You are Pheasant." And then I'd immediately say again, "Who are you?" "I'm your mother." "And me?" "You're Pheasant." That's how bad my memory was. So I might have come from a hospital where I'd become accustomed to where I was, but I'd forgotten it by the time I was home. So although I didn't know where I was, I wouldn't have known if I'd been taken back to hospital. So this is all about a long recovery. You know, I couldn't walk when I got home. I was very spastic all down my right side. I'd had a lot of bleeding on the left side of my brain. You see, that's why my left eye doesn't work properly. And your left side of your brain controls the right side of your body, and vice versa. So my right side is still was very spastic, and it still is quite spastic to this day, which has caused a lot of problems for me, and I've had many different operations to try and sort things out. Where was I? I've lost myself. I forget.
Yeah, no, you forgot your memory. You thought you were being kidnapped.
Yeah,
and then you asked your mom who you were and who she was.
Okay. All right. So slowly, yeah, it was a few weeks I was in that state of not remembering and not understanding who I was. And all this time I kept asking, and my poor parents kept replying. And many, many people came to visit me over that time. And they were so nice to me and brought me presents and everything. And I didn't know who any of them were. And apparently all I did was smile and be charming and say hello. And it's amazing how the brain kicks into action. Because I would respond to people I didn't know, but I'd say the right things. Like I had a friend, her name was Claire. And she told me, you know, all my life I was counseling people. They were telling me all their deep, dark secrets and what they should do, and they like this person, or I'm fat, or that, this and that. And there was this lovely girl who was a friend of mine, and she told me about this guy she had such a crush on, and how was she going to make a relationship work. So, of course, apparently I said, "Oh, yeah, how are things going with you and Steve? Is he around? You see Steve smiling at you." Now, I didn't even know who I was talking to, but parts of my brain were working well enough to say that sort of thing. I was in a survival mode. So I think it was about 6 weeks before the day I was driving in the truck with my dad. All this time I was very dependent. I couldn't walk. I was being held up behind because I couldn't use a walker or a wheelchair because my arm wouldn't work. So there goes the telephone. Don't worry, I'm sure it'll stop soon. Anyway, I was driving that day in the truck with my father. We were going to fetch hay for our horses. And I was going along this old dusty dirt road, and suddenly I looked around and I thought, "Hey, I'm Pheasant. And that's my dad. That's my dad." And suddenly I had this realization of who I was and who he was and what was actually happening. So we went to this man, I can't remember his name, surprise, surprise, and there we were sitting getting hay, and my dad told this guy the story of what had happened to me. And I listened to what had happened to me, and what was like the first time I'd heard it. Now, it had been told to me many, many times over the last few weeks. But it was like I was now learning the story of myself, and I was learning myself, about myself. So that was the start, that was day one for me, where I had to put my life back together. And that's where I started working. Although I'd been having physio pretty much daily, a friend of ours was coming and giving me physio to try and loosen me up and make my hands work again and start to work. From there, I could start building with her and start exercising myself and working myself so that I could learn to walk again and feed myself and take myself to the toilet and all of these things which were being done for me all this time. So yes, it's been a long ride. Although the first year was very fast, everybody was very impressed at how well I was doing.
Okay.
The reason for that was because the one thing I could remember before anything else was that I'd started running. I had been quite overweight before my accident, and I needed to do something to lose weight. Now, I'd always had asthma when I was young, growing up, and I couldn't play sports. That's why I was so involved with horses and riding, because it was the one thing I could do without having asthma attacks. But that wasn't losing weight for me. So I started running. I'd have to run very slowly, though, to avoid asthma. But it helped me, and I lost quite a lot of weight, and I got quite fit before my accident. And the doctors always said if she hadn't had that level of fitness, she wouldn't have survived. And I was passionate about running because you get that running bug. You get like a bit of adrenaline when you have a run. And I wanted to do it more and more and more. And I was getting better at it. And the first thing I could remember was that I wanted to run. So about as soon as I could walk, I was saying, I want to run, I want to run, I want to run. So I went up with my mum. Was it my mum? Yeah, my mum with me, another friend, Bobby, who came with me to run with me, and my dad in the car behind, and all the dogs around us at my feet. And I sort of shuffled along on a back road. You know, we lived in the countryside, so there was a little tar back road along to Glenburn Lodge, and I'd shuffle along there and start running again. And as my balance improved, because I was very, very dizzy for a long time, I had terrible balance because my eardrum had burst and whatever else, I don't know. I still have balance issues to this day and dizzy days. I still get dizzy days. For a long time, I was very, very dizzy. The world would spin and I could sit down and everything would be spinning. But luckily it would go on and off. You know, I had about 3 months of dizziness and then it would go for a bit and balance would come and go. So I was a slow runner, even slower than before. But slowly, as things improved, I improved. And very luckily, when I had been unconscious, I'd had pneumonia twice. I say luckily, and I'd had ARDS, which is a very severe. I learned later when I went back to speak to my veterinary teacher from Technikon College. I told her I had ARDS, which was acute respiratory distress syndrome. She couldn't believe that I'd lived. She said that is the most severe form of illness in horses, and 90% of them die. So I investigated, and it's apparently got a mortality rate of 70%. So, which, of course, the doctors didn't tell my parents at the time because they were under enough stress. So they did something to me in hospital while I was unconscious. They put steroids or something. I don't know what into my lungs. But my asthma has virtually not occurred since my accident. Every now and then when it's very cold, I'll get a bit tight when I'm running. So it was a very great gift which was given to me because I've been able to run, you know, slowly. Dad was fantastic. He followed me around in the car as I slowly worked up from, at first I just went around the garden with the lawn. I didn't count the number of times I went round. But then I started going out onto the road with the dogs, and then it was 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers, 4 kilometers, 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers. And then I was starting to run races, and I was running half marathons, 21 Ks, and then slowly it went up to full marathons. However, I did have problems because of my spasticity. Turned out my one side was lying longer than my other side. So I got this terrible foot pain. I was running with this foot pain all the time, and it turned out my foot was broken. The only, you know, I'd still run. Because, you see, in this time, about a year had passed through all of this, I developed a headache. At 11 months, I got a headache one day. I woke up with this headache, and it didn't go away.
Sure.
And it was there. It was a splitting headache. It was there 24 hours a day, every day. I'd take Disprin, Panada, whatever. it didn't help unless I took very strong doses, and the strong doses would just knock me out to sleep. And when I woke up, the headache was there. The only thing which took away the headache was my running. While I was running, the headache was gone. So all I wanted to do was run. Archie later said to my parents that my recovery was due to the amount of exercise I did and the amount of running I did, because of the amount of fresh oxygen which was going through my brain because of the exercise. He said that has done magic for her. So I struggled along with marathons and a broken foot, and finally I eventually went to a doctor. Did different podiatrists and stuff, and they did different things in my shoes, but it didn't work. And finally I went to a guy, and he x-rayed. He said, no, you've got a broken sesamoid bone and another cracked one. So he operated on me. This was this just before? No, this was, I can't remember. I've had 2 foot-ops. I can't remember which is which. I think this was the one just before the New York Marathon, because I was asked to run the New York Marathon for a group called Headway. Headway was a group for people with brain injuries, and I started going to them about am I going on too much?
No, it's fine, carry on.
And I started going to them about a year after my accident, and they couldn't believe how well I was doing. And to cut a long story short, they got in touch with the Achilles Club, and the Achilles Club is a running club for people with disabilities. And they offered Headway space for 2 people from Headway to go to New York, because Achilles is from America, and they do the New York Marathon every year. So they offered me the chance to go to New York. So I had a foot operation just before New York, because it's all right. I had a foot operation a few months before New York because of the pain, and I knew I wouldn't be able to finish. I couldn't go all the way to New York and not finish a marathon. I'd never not finished a race. In all that time, I'd run through hobbling along with agony in my foot, but I would not go all the way to a race and not finish. If I had to crawl through, I would. The one time I didn't get through, I was running one of the marathons. It was Wally Hayward, I think, and the pain was so bad I knew I wouldn't be able to do 2 laps, so I only did 1 lap and got the half marathon medal. I was so disappointed, but I couldn't do that in New York. So this guy operated, and he removed my sesamoid bone, the broken sesamoid, and he did something else with the damaged tendon. And then he said to me, oh well, when you have crutches for a little while, but when the pain goes away, that's fine, just do some exercises. When you're ready to run. Which was a terrible thing to do, which I later found out from my second operation. The second foot operation I had a few years later, because everything was so bad with my foot. I was in bed for a month, and then on crutches for a month, and only walking for another 4 weeks or something. Anyway, that operation got me to New York, and I ran New York Marathon. It was fantastic. It was an amazing experience. It really was. But at the end of the marathon, I was in agony with my foot, and I knew I was going to have to either do something or change sport, which is what I had to do.
And what did you choose to do?
I started kayaking.
Okay.
And I very luckily met a man, Desmond Coetsen, Des, and he saw my potential, and he said, if you buy yourself a K2 boat, that's a boat for people with two berths, I will do the Fish River Marathon with you. Okay. He'd done many, and he'd also done many Comrades. Comrades is still my dream race, which I still have to finish. It's the race from Pietermaritzburg in Natal down to Durban. It's 89 kilometers. I've still got to finish Comrades. I tried once, but I couldn't do it. My leg was troubling. My knee was buckling up. My foot was sore. All the same rubbish. Anyway. Should I leave it there for now?
We can. I'm going to just pause it.
Peering along a bit.
Okay, guys, we're back. Yeah. So, Phez is going to just tell us a little bit more, and then she's going to tell us where you can find her book called Headlines, Rebuilding a Brain. And yeah, so
Where was I when we realized the sound was off?
That said that you,
Oh, yes. Yes. Okay. The Fish River Canoe Marathon. Well, we did the Fish River Canoe Marathon together, believe it or not. We did quite well, although Des was quite upset because I caused us to fall out at one place on the second day, and we didn't go to do as well as he usually did, but he was fantastic to me. But then after that, he promised one race. I had to get on my own feet and do it myself. However, all this time I wasn't employed. I used to work for my mother in an art gallery 3-4 days a week for a while, which sort of helped me along. It helped me buy a car, get my own little second-hand bakkie, so I could be mobile by myself. But the gallery had to shut. We weren't doing well enough. So my dad and I started a chicken business. We were growing chickens. We were bringing up chickens for slaughter on the farm, on our plot. And then I was having to take them out and sell them in informal settlements because that was the easiest way of doing it. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I couldn't afford to carry on doing paddling because it was a long way away and the petrol was too much. So I stopped paddling, but luckily I heard about a man who I went to. He was a physiotherapist who would make me every month. He started making me special what are they called? Inners for my feet. Sole inners. But they'd differ each week. He used to do it with Yellow Pages books because my spasticity depends. The worse my spasticity is on my side, the worse my hips tilt. So it depends how long my leg is, how much foot pain I have, you see. And he fixed that for me, but it was a monthly visit. And he helped me greatly. So I started running again after the second foot op, or whatever it was. I forget. I've had a lot of ops over the years, unfortunately. Anyway, so Adrian Stevens, he got me running again, thankfully, because, although I had met a man after 3 years of headache who had unbelievably fixed my headache. He'd found my C3 was out of alignment in my spine that was causing my headache. He fixed me unbelievably. I still needed my run. I still needed my exercise to keep me going because of depression, It helped me. Anyway, I'm going on too long. I'm now a mother, believe it or not, through a hell of a lot. And I hope you will help me, please, because it's been tough finding work, keeping work. I have 2 young girls I'm trying to bring up, and I've written a book together with my mum, with her diary entries when I was in a coma, and telling a bit about me as I go along. It's called Headlines, Rebuilding a Brain. So please could you support me and buy my book? Because I'm trying to support a family now.
Where can we get
you can buy it online from Balboa Press. Balboa Press, you can get it online.
Okay, guys, I'll put that in the description down below. I'll just grab a pen and write it down. But yeah, thank you so much, Phez.
Thank you, Heidi.
You're welcome.
Very kind
of you. The little
of you.
bit that I read in the beginning of the book, it was fantastic, and I thought, wow. Okay, this is a book that you will not put down. Anyway, guys, yeah, so if you can please support Phez in whatever way.
Thank you, I'd appreciate it.
I can, if you want to get hold of her, I will give her your numbers. So you guys can send me an email, or they can send you an email.
Send me an email.
Yeah, so you can contact Phez directly, your email address.
porpenreid. It's small case letters. P-O-R-P-E-N for Nelly. REID@gmail.com.
There we go. So you can contact Phez directly. It'll be better that way because
you don't want to be the middleman.
No,
You've got enough on your plate.
I've got enough stuff to do. So guys, yeah, please contact Phez if you got any questions. And if you would
Thank
like to
you,
support
Heidi.
in whatever way.
Thank you so much.
Lots
I
and
really
lots of love.
appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.